Back out by Jamie Baker. Yushkevich wheels it back in. Lindros lost. Archibald takes him out of the play. Up with it is Recchi. Walks in front. Shot one, knocked down. Rebound, score! Lindros!
TheFourthPeriod.com presents the O&B Puckcast, episode number 79. We're back for another week as the Flyers are a week plus into training camp. I'm your host, Isaiah. And, Chef, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. What are we? We're very close to getting some hockey very soon. Loving it.
What is it, 10, 11 days? But we got to tell you, we have, and if you've been on Twitter, you kind of know what we're going to tell you, but we have a new regular contributor to the O&B Puckcast, but fear not, he is not a stranger. He has distinguished himself with Philly as Flyer and also on the Getting Bullied podcast, where he might show up still once in a while. You know him as Dan Silver. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to join you guys. I'm a big fan, and I've loved coming on as a guest, and now being a regular contributor. This is going to be great. I'm really excited. You guys are great, professional, and it's going to be great. I'm pumped.
Great. We're pumped too. You have a following. You've earned that. You've worked hard. Your articles on the prospects alone have brought you a certain level of cachet among the Flyers fan base, and that it speaks for itself before we even got here, which is why we're glad you are here with the O&B Puckcast. And gents, we have a lot of news to go through, but first I'd like to take some time out to discuss the passing of Jack McElhargy, who played with the Flyers in the 70s and a little bit in the 80s, and who ended up as a assistant coach and a scout. We lost him yesterday at the age of 68. And Bucky, as he was affectionately called, was a defensive defenseman with a hard edge. He could throw punches as fast as anybody I've ever seen in NHL history, and he probably won 90% of his bouts. And he was the right guy at the right time for the Flyers in their era, most notably in 1976. And that was a powerhouse team that still made it to the finals without Bernie, and in the playoffs without Rick McLeish. So fond memories of Jack. And of course, Dan, the Flyers talked about in their statement how, as part of their scouting staff, how he is partly responsible for a lot of the fine young players that we see on the team today.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm 40 years old, so I was the late 70s was kind of right before I was born, and I always wish I could have. I always say that there's two games I wish I could have actually been there for before I was born: the Russian Red Army game and the first Stanley Cup win at home. And it sounds like he was a Flyer during that time period, and really contributed a lot of his life to the Flyers, which is something we see. I mean, this organization is. People stay with the Flyers organization. They treat people so well. It's something Ed Snyder just brought to this franchise, and I think we see it with a lot of the players that come through here. They end up having this allegiance to the Flyers, and it sounds like he was kind of a similar case and really helped the Flyers back then, and now where they are with some of these prospects that he helped select. So very sad news, and RIP, and it's part of our entire family. So
yeah, Chef, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, it was well said. I mean, I'm close to. I will be 50 tomorrow, So I'm on the other. I'm in between.
Happy early birthday!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, we're gonna be. I guess we'll be 10 years apart, each of us. So
I just thought of that.
although although I was born, we didn't get. My mom was basically responsible for me for getting into hockey because she loved the Flyers, and that's how we got into it. But I don't think we didn't. I was a little too young to appreciate it at age 7. I can remember it being on, but I wasn't really a fan till like 80, 81. So I barely remember seeing him play. I remember the number and I remember the face. But yeah, it's a huge loss because you're right. He was involved with the team still, and with all the prospects and the draft picks that Dan has actually got some good background on, so it's great.
Yeah. So our condolences to the McElhargy family, and we move on. Jack McElhargy, dead at age 68. So, gentlemen, we had a scare today. Dan Carter Hart leaves practice, and due to something we were talking about before we got on the air about the policy regarding almost kind of like a HIPAA policy regarding how open the league or the team is willing to be about injuries in this coronavirus era. It took Colby Cohen to ride to the rescue and tell us that Carter had some minor back spasms. It locked up a little bit during the skate today, and I think he'll be back in a day or two. We hope that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We kind of had the same thing to a lesser degree with Voracek a couple of days ago, right? Where he left the ice and it turned out to be something where, his COVID test hadn't come back and he had to get another one. And he kind of, Charlie O'Connor actually wrote a really good article with interviews over at The Athletic with Voracek on the whole process. And it's something that we're going to have to get used to because, we used to, we'd always make fun of the fact that the NHL would say, oh, this guy's got an upper body injury or lower body injury. There's more information. Well, now there's really no information because the league and the team's policies are for the privacy of the players. They're just not going to give out any information at all. And so, yeah, I mean, Carter Hart leaves practice and everyone's freaking out. But the guys on the ice said they didn't see anything major happen. And with goalies, you just never know. And then I guess Colby Cohen, who works for NBCSN or NBC Philly, when they're covering the Flyers games, tweeted out that it looked like some kind of back spasms or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm still not entirely comforted, but I think it's just something we're going to have to get used to. I mean, Sidney Crosby left the ice the other day for the Penguins, so I'm going to try not to let my blood pressure go too high or too low based on it. But it's going to be a roller coaster. This whole experience, this whole playoffs is going to be a roller coaster. Yeah,
I mean, these are the times that can try men's souls right now, where everything is going on. And Chef, it was funny. Like Dan referred to what happened with Jake. Jake was so funny about it. Yeah, because Jake was pronounced, this is the phrase that you're going to hear from time to time when it's probably coronavirus related, unfit to play. What, he's in a straitjacket now? Or what's the deal? But we know the deal, but I'm just having fun. And Jake was so funny about you guys are getting crazy. I'm sure you read that.
Yeah, he said it's not the end of the world or something like that. I'm fine. You guys have me being dead or something like that. So
I think he added an F-bomb in there.
Yeah. I think we added that. Yeah, I edited that part out. But yeah, he was funny about it. And you know what? We're gonna have like you both said, we're gonna have to get used to this. I mean, it's one, it's gonna be an injury. He can't play. Sorry. Well, what more information you give you? No, we can't. So we just have to take that pill and swallow it. The guy's hurt from the feet up. What can I tell you? So, that kind of thing. And we're just going to have to deal with this, the day and age. And sometimes, I forget, we forget that they're people and maybe we don't have a right to know all the time. But, it's just something we're going to have to power through.
Yeah. And it's it reminds you, I don't know why I thought of this. It's a crazy mind of mine. It reminded me of Saturday Night Live when they were trying to spoof the Smuckers commercial, and they were trying to come up with something that if with a name like Smuckers, it has to be good. And then one of the bits was, with a name like Painful Rectal Itch, it has to be good. I don't know. So if somebody has painful rectal itch, no worries. They'll just be pronounced unfit to play. Anyway, I'm moving on.
I was worried you were going to go to the Monty Python Dead Parrot sketch. And say, the parrot is unfit to play. Actually dead, but
exactly. Yeah, unfit to play. Weren't we saying that about Andrew McDonald, right? All those years.
Yes.
Unfit.
If he was healthy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Healthy as a horse. But I'll tell you, 3 Flyers that definitely are worth talking about happen to be 3 finalists for NHL awards, and I wanted to get into that. Dan, I'll hit you up first with Alain Vigneault is up for Jack Adams, and he's in competition with John Tortorella and Bruce Cassidy of the Boston Bruins. And he's earned it. He's done a great job. Maybe make a case for why he deserves it over either one of those gentlemen.
I mean, Vigneault has just, him and Chuck Fletcher have basically turned around the culture of this organization and this team. And, what we suffered through with Ron Hextall and Dave Haxtell was, it was almost, we were kind of like the Stepford Wives, where we were just kind of like beaten down and not really expecting anything. Ron Hextall obviously did a great job amassing prospects and a great job managing the salary cap. Dave Haxtall, I don't think he did much of a great job in any respect. And so I think getting Vigneault in here, who the opposite of Haxtall, he's kind of very open and honest. He's got this brash personality. And he came in and he gave some structure to this team. And we saw this aggressive forecheck that they came out with. And we'd heard that he didn't like playing rookies. And the complete opposite's been true. He puts these guys like Joel Farabee, Phil Myers, in spots where, the pressure's on them, and he's got confidence in them. And I think he just come in and really turned around the culture of this team. It went from a team that we were talking about with the kind of a almost like a losing mentality and people questioning the vets and all of this. And I think Vigneault's really come in and changed all of that to the point where, when the season had stopped, they were a team that was, in the top 4 in the entire conference, ahead of the Penguins, ahead of the Maple Leafs. And a lot of credit has got to go to what Vigneault's done. And he's got a reputation of coming in the first few years, the teams are very strong. The same thing happened for him in New York and Vancouver, and the same thing is going on here in Philadelphia. And so, I think you just can't say enough about what he's done. Obviously, Tortorella and Cassidy have done great jobs. Everyone left Columbus for dead when they basically had a fire sale and didn't bring people back. They basically traded all their assets last year to make a run last year, and all those guys left for free agency. So he's done a great job, and obviously Bruce Cassidy's a very good head coach. But yeah, I think you could say that for the culture of a team, no coach has done more this year than Vigneault has for the Flyers.
I agree. I think you made a really good point. Cassidy's inherited a team that went to the finals last year, and good on him for getting them to the point where they're at. They look like the better team than St. Louis, but St. Louis got it together and pulled through. But it's tough to come back and get to a point where you look like you're a favorite, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And, of course, what Tortorella did. But Tortorella's, I think, Chef, what Dan's talking about, he basically turned the whole culture around and has really done the finest job I've seen since Laviolette came in and, maybe in 2010, 2011. And they've needed that kind of professionalism. And that just hadn't been here in so long. And I think Dan made a good case.
Yeah, no, he made a really good case. I was thinking like a culture or mindset or whatever you want to call it. I think it was a breath of fresh air. Like, he touched on Hextall, he touched on Haxtall, and basically there was a mindset with this team, but it was coming from the GM. It wasn't coming down, and I guess, relating to the players. I think, somewhere, what's that, the game you play, Whisper Down the Lane?
Yeah.
You start with one thing, and by the time you get down to the players, it was totally different. And all, what was true, what wasn't true about how much information or what Hextall wanted to be done to be controlling as he was, who knows what happened. So the best thing was AV getting in there, and he changed the whole mindset, the culture of everything. And I just think he resonates with the players more, I think, than what Hextall ever could.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's such an insightful point you make. Hextall was almost like Svengali-like with Hackstall. But the players didn't need that. It's almost like he was his lackey. And I think over time that wore on the players. And Dave was a nice enough guy, and he was a good professional, and he looks like an assistant coach for life. But to go from where they were at to where they're at now, with a quiet, out-of-the-way general manager and a big ego, but matched by a big performing coach, is pretty much what this team needed to get a kick in the butt, instead of getting a lot of high-profile players and all, like I thought maybe they needed to get some personality. No, I think that, Hayes came in and did a good job in that department, but they need a professional coach to get that out of them. I really do. And that's I think it all came together for them this year. Now, Oscar Lindblom, we were also happy, Dan, that he completed his radiation, his chemo, and he was nominated for a Masterton Trophy. He is one of the 3 finalists, with Bobby Ryan from Ottawa and Stephen Johns from the Dallas Stars, who I'm not as familiar with his story. I got to admit, I'm with Anthony Sanfilippo on this one. Look, we all love Oscar's story, but doesn't Oscar have to come back in uniform and play to really be the guy who qualifies for that trophy? And that's not a knock on Oscar, don't get me wrong, but what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, it's such a great story, and we're all hoping that he's going to come back and play. And there's still some hurdles that he's got to jump over. But just the fact that he, walked down the hallway and ring that bell, and he's done with his treatments, it's just so heartwarming. And just you see video of him walk into a room and smile, and it just lights up the room. And he's just seems like a wonderful, wonderful young man. And so, it's great. But for the purposes of this trophy, you've got a guy like Bobby Ryan, who was, I think, in the player assistance program. He had alcohol abuse issues, and he came back, and he ended up scoring a hat trick in his first home game back, which was just sort of a fantastic story. I think that Stephen Johns has had some issues with post-traumatic headaches, and he missed about 50 games this year, and then he came back. It's almost like Nolan Patrick, if he's able to come back, maybe it'll be kind of like a similar story. So the Flyers could almost have 2 guys like that if Patrick comes back and Lindblom comes back. So I think it was a really nice tip of the cap that he was nominated. I'm not sure that he's going to win, but just a great kid, and we're all rooting for him.
Yeah, absolutely. If there was this, after some of the tragedies in Flyer history, Pelly, he was a different kind of guy, but in terms of being amiable and lovable, like by the public at large, Oscar has that quality as well. And everybody's rooting for him. And, that'll be a great day, and probably not a dry eye in the house when he's able to step on the ice. So, Chef, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, look, I agree. I agree when that was the point I was going to make. Is I get it. Come back, Masterson come back arguably, but there's the problem. He beat it, which is a great story, and I'm so happy for him. I have my brother's going through some stuff right now, so totally get where he's coming from. When he skated down on the ice for that practice and he was there, and like Dan said, you could see the smile. You didn't need them to zoom in on a telephoto lens to see that big old smile on his face. It was there. It lit up the whole damn building. But the point being, like when he comes back next year, he skates, he gets 15 goals, 20 goals, whatever. If he comes back next year, he wins that trophy hands down. There's nobody who could take that away from him. But and I'm not saying I don't love him. He's one of my favorite players. He was somebody I was talking about 2-3 years ago. And I just think that if it was a complete comeback where he actually played a game or two this season and maybe scored a couple goals, I think it's his hands down. But who knows? He's got a very good shot of winning it next year too as well. Yeah,
we'll just have to see that works out. And like Dan said, watch out for Nolan Patrick. I know all about headaches, that's for sure. And the final leg of this triple crown of Flyers nominees is Sean Couturier is a Selke finalist in competition with Patrice Bergeron and Ryan O'Reilly. Dan, you want to take a crack at the case for Coots?
I mean, I think he's got a great shot to win this award. Of the 3 Flyers nominated, I think he's got the highest likelihood of taking home the hardware, and it's well-deserved. I mean, as Flyers fans, we kind of love complaining about how our guys are ignored, right? I mean, Claude Giroux left off Team Canada multiple times. He doesn't seem to get the respect that he deserves for the numbers that he's put up. If the Flyers had won a Stanley Cup or 2, he'd probably be thought of as a guy like Jonathan Toews, but he hasn't won a cup, and he's kind of played, fiddle behind a lot of those top stars in the league, even though his numbers are similar. And Ivan Provorov, we love to talk about how sometimes he gets disrespected by folks, and we see what he is. He's a monster #1 defenseman, took that step forward this year. Probably not a guy that really deserved to be nominated for the Norris Trophy as the league's best defenseman, but still probably a guy who could get a little more attention around the league. I think we feel that way about a lot of our players, and Sean Couturier for sure, because for those of us, that watch the Flyers night in, night out, it's fairly evident that he's the most valuable player on this team. I mean, he's taking the big face-offs, he's scoring big goals, and he's just so reliable. He is such a reliable player that if he's not in the lineup, the trickle-down effect is just so damaging to this team. And so, you look at, he's put up 59 points this season, which is pretty damn good, almost a point a game based on the amount of games that they ended up playing. He led the entire NHL in face-off winning percentage, which is obviously huge in terms of puck possession. He was 3rd in defensive zone face-off winning percentage. Those are where a lot of those tough face-offs are that you've got to win. So, he's I think Dave Poulin last won this award in 86-87. So it's been a long time since a Flyer has won this award. I think he's got a great shot. I don't think Bergeron's going to win. I mean, he's 9 consecutive seasons he's been a finalist, and he's won it 4 times, looking to win it to a record 5th time, but he hasn't won it since 2017. And I think that I don't think that he's going to end up winning. His numbers not nearly as good as Couturier from a defensive perspective. He's 4th in face-off winning percentage, opposed to Couturier's 1st. I think that the guy who's the danger to win it from Couturier is the same guy who won it last year. It's Ryan O'Reilly for the reigning Cup champion St. Louis Blues. Offensively, he's right on par with Couturier, and he actually led the NHL in face-off wins with 880. 3rd straight season, Ryan O'Reilly's led the league in face-off wins, which is very impressive. I mean, he's an absolute workhorse. Him and Couturier are both workhorses, and I think it's going to be close between them. But it does seem like Couturier's got a lot of momentum going when you see opinions from national reporters on Twitter. So I think Couturier is going to end up winning this one.
Yeah, well, and Shep, that Couturier was, and something we kind of ridiculed, was the halfway point winner when the writers, which I thought it was really stupid. But, he was ahead at halftime, if we could call it like that. I look at Couturier, and having watched Bobby Clark's whole career, totally different temperaments, but very similar games. I think Clark had a little bit more native skill, but I think that he's the closest thing to Sean Couturier, or the other way around, I should say. When I look at the leader, it's just Bobby Clark was very free and wild with the stick as the times allowed, but Couturier, like Dan said, is the essential Flyer right now. He is their most valuable player without a doubt.
Oh yeah, definitely, and there's no arguing about it. I don't want to say the team is revolving around him, but it's not. It's totally a whole team, but it's just like Dan said, he's got probably the best shot anytime probably any Flyers had in a very long time, and I think he's got a good chance of winning it too. The only thing that bothers me is Riley. O'Reilly he won it last year. That's the only thing that's going to be fresh in their heads, I think. And it's that face-off winning percentage too. It's huge. So 3 years in a row is a big deal. But I think it's going to come if it's down to votes, maybe 5-vote difference. I think Bergeron is out of the running for it, but who knows? You can't tell with these things. But
yeah, I mean the good news is that, as you can tell, O'Reilly won it last year. He's nominated again. And Bergeron's been nominated for 9 straight years. So this is one of those awards where once you get nominated for the first time, it seems like you keep getting nominated. So even if Couturier doesn't win it this year, I'd say there's a high likelihood that he'll win it next year or the year after. So, as long as his level of play keeps elevated, he's a guy that will probably keep getting nominated for the award.
Yeah, because Selke has that kind of character, that kind of quality to it. Once you're moved into that category, now you're on a perennial contender for as long as you don't fall off a cliff with your play. So I definitely would agree with that. So we'll have to see what happens. See if the Flyers can go get their own hat trick after the season, but I do think they will grab one of those awards. But gents, let's get into some of the reports from training camp, and I just want to focus real fast on Maxim Shushko going back to the KHL. And Dan, I want to start with you because you probably know this player a little bit better than we do. Some people have taken that like, oh gee, he's going back to the KHL, but it really seems like if you listen to Brand Flair, this is a good sign. They want him playing because he's shown enough that he has a future with the team.
So, the Flyers have so much prospect depth right now, and it's across all categories. It's forwards, it's defensemen, it's goaltenders. I put together regular top 20 prospect lists twice a year, and Sushko I don't think he's ever broken the top 20, and I've seen him play quite a bit. I just, compared to what the Flyers have in the system, he's not a guy I think that we would expect to break with the NHL team anytime soon. He's he had a really good performance in the World Junior Championships a couple of years ago. I mean, what is he Belarusian?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think he was on Belarus, and he was their captain. He was their best player. He was very solid, but obviously being the best player for Belarus is not nothing that spectacular. And he came into the AHL, and he didn't really do anything to distinguish himself. I mean, he's a very solid player. I think so. I think he had like 21 points in 53 games this year in the AHL, which is fine. And he's just a guy. I mean, he's got leadership skills. He's kind of an all-around player. But the Flyers, have a lot of guys that fit that mold. When you're talking about players like Noah Cates and Tanner Lazinski, Connor Bunneman, Carson Twarynski, like all of those guys are going to be higher on the depth chart than a guy like Sushko. And so, he's not a prospect that I think that Flyers fans necessarily need to pay a whole lot of attention to. But he's a good guy to have in the system.
Okay, but he's not being cast aside. It's just they want him playing, but you're kind of like, well, he's kind of off to the side a little bit now, and not. Yeah,
I'm not going to lose any
sleep
if he exits the organization. I will not lose any sleep over it, and I don't think that any Flyers fans out there should either, except for maybe his family members.
Okay, so we're not going to have a Cooper Marody freak out then if he remember that one.
No.
Cooper Marody, no.
Marody put up big numbers in college, but he was also a guy that Edmonton gave him a huge chance on that team. I think he was playing on the second or third line. He might have gotten some time with Connor McDavid, and he's just, Ron Hextall knew I think that Cooper Marody is the only prospect that Ron Hextall ever traded away. And, Ron Hextall is no dummy when it comes to that. So
give him credit on that. Cooper Marody, he's grody. Get him out of here. All right. So, silliness aside, Chef, there was some dialogue that was captured by Bill Meltzer. Mike Yeo was talking about how the Sanheim-Myers pair should be staying together, and that's the plan. And they're going to get big minutes against the best competition like they did toward the end of the season, and he feels like they're going to be able to handle that, and they're going to have that solid top four with Provy and Niskanen, and he trusts these guys, that you have the athletic ability. These guys are very long, they're fast, and, they're growing into their bodies, getting stronger all the time.
Yeah, he had nothing but, praise and high expectations. I think that's good. I mean, they obviously want to be able to lean on these guys, and they're telling you that they can, and which is a great thing. I think both have grown exponentially since the beginning of the season. I remember Myers. I just listened to our first show to listen back at our predictions, and Myers was talking about not even going to be on the team. It's so funny, but it's also great how far they've come. So it's a good thing. I think having your coach's confidence gives you a little more confidence. And I think that, and in fact, I think it was you that said it might have been just a confidence thing with Myers, like getting his mojo back or something. So it's good. I'm glad that they feel like that these are the kids of the future and that they're able to rely on them, because they've pretty much proven it this season with a lot of tough competitors.
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit of a leap of faith, but Dan, these two guys seem to be perfect complementary parts, and they're not even what they're going to be in years to come.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there are two players that are going to benefit most from the Flyers having this kind of extended break due to COVID. And for me, it was Joel Farabee and Phil Myers, because as a rookie in the NHL, you hit a wall, and you saw it especially with Farabee. I mean, he's 19, 20 years old.
Right.
And we saw him hit a wall, and people were freaking out. And I loved how they were handling it, kind of giving him a break, because I am just such a huge fan of Farabee. He was my number one Flyers prospect coming into the season, over Frost, over Myers, who are also tremendous players. But Farabee is, for what he's done, kind of every age level is just sensational. So anyway, but he was hitting a wall. Phil Myers sort of hitting a wall a little bit. He also had the injury to his kneecap. I think he stress fracture in his kneecap from taking a shot.
Right. Yeah.
But so either way, to me, having basically another short off season is really going to benefit those two guys the most, because they're basically NHL rookies. And so I think, the Flyers defense core, when you talk about Provorov, Sanheim, and Myers, those are all guys who theoretically could be top pairing defensemen in the NHL. And I actually had Myers as a higher prospect than Sanheim when they were both prospects. So I mean, those two guys are behemoths, and they're both big, tall defensemen who can skate like the wind, very solid physically, especially Myers. Myers Sanheim is one of these guys who's never really been injury prone over the course of his career so far. Phil Myers has been. During juniors, he had various injuries, so I worry about him a little bit just from the injury perspective. He's had a couple concussions, but I have if he's healthy, I have absolutely no qualms about throwing him and Sanheim out there as a second pair, because those guys, the more experience they get, they are just going to be an absolute scary second pair for teams to deal with, and they can shut down opposition's top players. I mean, you saw those guys would be out there against Ovechkin, and sometimes when they were playing against the Caps. So I love it. I love them as a second pair, and I think that it's going to be really exciting to see those two guys develop.
Yeah, I mean, the sky is really the limit. Phil Myers is really one of my favorite players. I think Sanheim thinks the game a little bit better, but all the more reason that those guys complement each other. Because other than that, there's a lot of similarities to like about those guys. But, Dan, you honed in on something that we kind of agree about. This little break, well, not so little, really, 4 months, it really acts like an off season. We're getting the sophomore years of Myers, of Farabee, and some of these other guys. So, and you're going to
exactly,
and these guys can take an exponential leap, and even Frost into the bargain too. So a lot of things are possible that for all the disadvantages of what's happened over the last several months. This could be kind of like a little secret edge that the Flyers have in terms of depth and players that are already in the lineup.
Man, that's why when people say, hey, there's no way to predict which teams are going to benefit from this break and this new format. Okay, yeah, I think that there's a certain validity to that. But I make the argument that based on what I just said, that the Flyers have more important younger players than a lot of teams around the league, that they may benefit more. And look, I get it. Some teams had injuries that they were dealing with. Jake Gensel was going to be out for most of the playoffs, and now he's probably going to be healthy. But, hey, you see in Tampa Bay, Steve Stamkos was going to be out for the playoffs for them, and he's injured again. So, I mean, not quite an advantage there when the guy comes back and he's got more issues that he's dealing with. But in my opinion, this is going to benefit the Flyers more than some other teams. And the other thing is that while the Flyers were, pretty good team this year at home, in the past, there have been some issues where they've, fans can get on. Look, it's Philadelphia. Fans will start booing more than they do at other arenas. And so to a certain extent, playing on the road may be more of a benefit to the Flyers than some other teams in the league. So between that and between the amount of young players that they have, I think that they are as well positioned as any team to improve over this break.
I agree, Chef. I think if you had to check off a box to the advantage of the Flyers in that particular category, I think you can do that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, think about like when we were kids. You go away for the school break. You come back in 2 months, 2 or 3 months after the summer, and Johnny down the street is now like 6'3". I mean, that's essentially what happened. You put these kids out in the sunlight, they grow like weeds. I mean, some of these guys could probably put on if they did nothing. I mean, and that's what we're hearing. That a lot of their stuff was weight training and bicycles, especially people that couldn't get access to a rink. They weren't all as lucky as Proby. So, I mean, boom, you put on, you take into consideration that all you really had to do during that whole damn quarantine, and we're still in it, is, work out, eat, work out, eat, work out, eat. I mean, some of these guys are going to come in a little bit bigger than they are and a lot stronger because, especially the younger guys. I mean, you talk about it like, remember when we were young guys? How fast you would heal, how fast you would jump, like just weightlifting and powerlifting. You could gain in 4 months of solid lifting. You could easily put on 50, 60, strength pounds on. Like your bench can go up 50 to 100 pounds in 4 months. So it's going to be exciting.
You had me there for a second. You thought the guys are putting on 50 pounds in 4 months. Like that's a lot of steroids, man.
No. I meant like you're jumping your weight. What you
can
lift on. It's easily. Well, that's me. Down a lot of donuts. I can put on 50, 60 pounds in a quarantine, no problem.
Yeah. So, So Yeah, there's no doubt that they can come back. You know, the pimples are replaced by muscles, and we'll see what happens with that. But I'm definitely optimistic there. And, yeah, so one thing I wanted to touch on that I'm trying to think which direction we want to go in. Dan, why don't we get into the something that you're really good at and I'm not? And that's a long list, I'm sure. But the betting odds in Vegas and the implications of that, what your experience has shown you, and maybe why maybe you think you might want to lay your money down on the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we kind of tend to like to think of our team as the underdog, and they don't get a lot of attention from the national media sometimes. But it's kind of more important to look at, hey, what are the odds if I wanted to go bet on the Flyers to win the Stanley Cup? And they're actually, you know, one of the favorites. And obviously, the 8 teams that have buys to the first round of the playoffs are, you know, you're going to get the worst odds on them because they basically already gotten through a round where the other 16 teams are fighting just to play in. But you look at the odds right now, and the Bruins and the Lightning are both the favorites. They're basically, you know, 7-1, 6-1 to win the Cup. And then you've got 2 Western Conference teams, the Avalanche and the Golden Knights, are both 8-1. But right after that, you've got the Caps and the Flyers, who, based on what site you're looking at, they're both around 9, 10-1 to win the Cup. And that's, I mean, the Flyers at 10-1, you know, the Blues are 11-1. So the defending Stanley Cup champs are 11-1, and the Flyers are 10-1. So, you know, the smart people think that the Flyers have a better chance to win the Cup than the St. Louis Blues. And of the top 8 teams, the Stars are kind of the longest shot on the board at 15-1. But, you know, I understand the Penguins have to win another round and the Maple Leafs have to win an additional round, but the Maple Leafs are 29-1. The Penguins are 16-1. And as Flyers fans, we probably think of, you know, that those teams are bigger favorites than we are just because it's the Penguins and the Maple Leafs, right? But it's not the case. I mean, based on Vegas odds, the Flyers have 3 times as good a chance to win the Cup than the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, you know, they're getting a lot of play and a lot of attention from the smart people that put these lines together. So, you know, just food for thought that there's a lot of smart people out there that think this team has a really good shot. And just since we're talking about it, some of the long shots that I would play are, you know, the Rangers at 43-1 is kind of interesting because they've got that young Russian goalie who I feel like could take them a long way.
Oh yeah,
you know what's interesting? Yeah, Shesterkin, he's unbelievable. The Winnipeg Jets are 55-1. I wouldn't play them, but I was just kind of surprised at that. Talk about a team that's kind of taken a fall from grace. I mean, a couple of years ago, we're talking about this team as kind of like a juggernaut, one of the Cup favorites. The longest shot on the board, the Chicago Blackhawks, 75-1. So, but anyway, it's based on these odds, the Flyers certainly have a pretty good shot.
Yeah, and didn't Jonathan Toews skate off the ice today or something? Or was
he unfit to play or something else?
No, I think he skated off the ice or something. I got to check that out on Twitter. But Chef, you were going to say something?
Yeah, well, it's funny, you know, you're talking about underdog and stuff like that. The money guys. I've always been. I was on a handicap show before, so I kind of know what you're talking about. The money guys have their pulse, whatever sport it is. They have their pulse on it, and they're usually, you know, they're right. They're right for a reason because of the money. But isn't it funny though how you said we don't get the respect, and that's from, I guess, the Philadelphia. I mean, we always felt like that. We always feel like we're getting this. I mean, even in the hype video for the NHL, the Flyers weren't in it. Now they're one of the teams that are in the qualifying round, but you saw like I think 3 or 4 teams that are not in the the round robin round. Sorry. And they're in a qualifying round, and they might not live to see another day after a couple games in that round. And the Flyers still, I mean, we still didn't get the respect from the playing guys.
Well, maybe it's because they don't have that big score. They're just getting their guys into the award rounds and things like that. Like Couturier, like we talked earlier, the Flyers are starting to get the respect again since the peak of Claude Giroux and all that. So yeah, but I hear you. So we'll
yeah. The hype video was funny because I watched it and I actually went through it and I put a check mark next to all the teams in the playoffs who were in that hype video because I was just looking to kind of get people riled up a little bit because I'd noticed that the Flyers weren't in there. And so 7 of the 8 top seeds were represented in that video. The Flyers were the only one that was not. And then it was almost like 13 more teams that are in the round of 16 were also in the video. So do I think that the Flyers were intentionally left out of that video? Obviously not, but I thought this is too good, not to put out there. So I among many of the other people who did it, I tweeted the video out and said, Flyers are, the only team in the top 8 that's not listed here. And it's kind of fun almost feeding off of that kind of stuff. And it'll be a lot more fun when we win the cup and we can just shove it in everyone's faces.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, according to the reporter for ChicagoBlackhawks.com, if I have this right, reporter and video manager for the Chicago Blackhawks, Jonathan Toews was deemed unfit to participate in today's practice, and I had heard that he had skated off the ice yesterday or something like that. So we'll have to watch that scenario. If you're betting for Chicago, maybe you want to hold off on that and go another direction.
I'm going tomorrow for my birthday.
Yeah,
I'm going to go over to the casino tomorrow for my birthday just to make it all my birthday. I'm going to put it down, and then hopefully that gives me a little extra mojo.
Yeah.
Were you playing the Flyers?
Oh, the Flyers, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have to.
Yeah, I got down on them, so. I had some drama with the regular season because I bet them over.
That's right.
The over-under was 88.5 points, and I just thought that was preposterously low. So I bet the over 88.5 points, and they got to 89 points in 69 games. So literally with 13 games left, they already got to the over, and the sportsbook wasn't going to pay me out. They were saying that it was William Hill. They were saying that they weren't honoring, any regular season bets were basically null and void, and they were just refunding the money. It's ridiculous because the team literally went over in 69 games. And so I posted about it on Twitter. I got some traction there, and I got a private message later that night from an executive at William Hill saying, we're gonna pay you out. Just make sure that you correct the record on Twitter. So the power of Twitter there for you.
Yeah, very good. Very good. I got to give down applause. Yeah, I thought you got hosed on that. You got to give. I'm sure you want to make sure you had handled it and put that over the finish line. But now, obviously, it's what you're doing on the O&B Puckcast tonight. Very good news. Very good news. But you deserve it. That was really a screw job if there ever was one. But just a little announcement that the league has changed the Flyers game with Tampa Bay that was originally scheduled on Sunday the 9th, and they switched it with the Capitals and Bruins game. So now the Flyers game will be on Saturday the 8th of August. And Jason Martinez was saying, he only speculated, he didn't know for sure, that maybe because the Flyers are a 4th seed, they didn't want to give the Flyers the advantage of being able to coast in that game if they knew that they had either clinched something or couldn't improve their position. I don't know if that's necessarily what occurred, but the league decided to change that. Of course, all these games will be in Toronto. There's no home ice or anything like that. And this will all occur, of course, while the qualifying rounds are being played. And they're going to have several different times. The games are going to be, like 4 hours apart or something like that. But yeah, just a note there. And the first exhibition game will be a week from today. I think they're scheduled, Dan, at 4 o'clock on the 28th against the Penguins.
Yep, Flyers Flyers Penguins open it up, Scotiabank Arena on NBCSN at 4 o'clock on July 28th. And then every team plays all 24 teams get to play one exhibition game. And then the fun starts with August 1st, the Canadiens and the Penguins. I think the first game is actually
the Rangers.
August 1st, the Rangers Hurricanes. Yep, at noon. So it's going to be crazy. We're all going to be, working from home and watching hockey every day.
Yeah, it's really something that the Rangers are definitely in the Canes' head. Didn't they sweep them this year?
I'm not sure. It sounds right.
Yeah, I think so. Right.
You know what it is about the Rangers? They don't have a lot of depth, but the skill that they have is so high end. With Panarin, who just was up for the Draisaitl.
The Hart?
Yeah, it was. I think it might have been the Hart, and my memory's escaping me here. But yeah, with the Draisaitl and McKinnon.
Yeah, Draisaitl and McKinnon.
But they also have Zibanejad and some of these guys. And then you throw in, like, Shesterkin, who could be a modern-day Patrick Waugh, for all we know, or Dominik Hasek. And it's, like you said, that's a dangerous team. And, yeah, there's so many interesting little stories within these playoffs. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to watch.
I can't wait. It's going to be fascinating. It's funny. I didn't even realize that baseball starts on the 23rd. It starts in a couple days. I had no idea. And I guess basketball is starting. I mean, I guess been so out of it with, with hockey, obviously I've been paying super close attention, but I don't know. Is it just me, or doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of interest in baseball these days? No.
I mean, they sputtered out of the gate. Then they had a feud, and then the players are saying, "I'm not risking my life for that kind of money." And they just you got to keep the dirty laundry in private. It's just you can't conduct league business that way. I think the NHL, we were saying this last week, Chef, that the NHL did far and away the best job of all the sports leagues in handling this and being transparent with each other, operating in good faith, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, DB jumped in on that too. Well, I'm telling you, I think out of all this, I mean, everybody's going into, went into the COVID with the same problems, all these leagues, all of them. NHL, I think, is coming out of it strong, possibly stronger than they were before, as a unified front. I mean, they extended the deal. They got TV contracts lined up. They're going to let those guys play in the Olympics. I mean, that's a big one for the players. I just think they did an amazing job, and I think the reason why what Dan is referring to is because you kept hearing negative stuff from all these other NBA, from MLB, and football hasn't even made a choice yet. So I just think it's because you kind of wrote them off because we're halfway through the baseball season and didn't look like they were going to get anything done. So I think it's just because the NHL was slow and steady. They had a plan. They stuck to their plan, and they executed it very well, I think.
Yeah, they were the tortoise in this whole thing, and if they can pull this off, they definitely won the race. And Dan, we had Dennis Bernstein on from thefourthperiod.com last week, and he was saying, what choice did the league and the players have? It was really the fate of the game was being decided, and that's why they wrapped everything together, the return to play and the CBA extension to 2026, and I think he's right on that.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the NHL just handled this so much better than any other professional league, and it's kind of makes us proud to be hockey fans, right? I mean, it's great, and now we just kind of cross our fingers and hope that everything goes on and isn't disrupted, and the Flyers win the cup.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely would be the bonus. That's for sure. And,
my dream is that the Flyers win the cup, and then they're so motivated by the fact that they couldn't do it in front of their fans that they come back next year and do it again with fans there.
That's right. You got 74, 75 all over again, and even if they make it in the third year and don't quite get there. I mean, that's a nice run. Yeah, I mean, it's what else can you ask for? Start these games. The NHL is going to outclass these other leagues. I really believe that. And just working together is a spirit of cooperation for the sake of the game. I'm not getting that from the other sports. So before we close out tonight, gents, I wanted to give a shout out to our buddy Dan the Flyer fan, and you can follow him at Dan the Flyer fan for his contributions to the O&B Puckcast. Dan is going to be concentrating on his brotherlypuck.com project and Brotherly Pod. Make sure you catch his fine podcasts that are all part of that franchise. And he wrote an article at brotherlypuck.com, which I think was probably his best one. And he talked about the Shea Weber offer sheet 8 years later. Like, what would we have lost had Nashville not matched that offer sheet, having lost Ryan Suter already to the Minnesota Wild? There was a sense of desperation with the Predators, and the Flyers thought they had a poison pill, and I think Shea Weber thought he was coming to the Philadelphia Flyers. Dan, what do you remember about those days, and the dueling scenarios? It's almost like that. What's her name? What's that movie? Sliding Doors or Sliding Panels with the actress. What's her name? Blythe Danner's daughter.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's two different paths in life, and I can't think of her name, but I'll get back to that. I'll look her up. Yeah, so it's like two different things that could have happened, and one of the things that Dan pointed out is the Flyers got to keep 4 first-round draft picks that they would have had to have sent to Nashville, including Samuel Morin. I know that would have made Dan happy, but that was not a good...
You noticed though?
Yeah.
Something about that article?
Yeah.
That the Flyers probably would have had him either way. So,
Yeah, I'll give Dan credit for that. Because that was a bad pick. They should have drafted the other Russian in there.
I just thought it was funny.
They should have taken Max Domi.
Well, yeah, I would have been happy. It's hard to tell with that draft because but the guy started out in Buffalo, now he's in Colorado, the big, tall defenseman. Had they just been more patient with him, I think he could have been a much better player, and he still might end up being a really good player, Nikita Zadorov. And I would have been very, very happy with that pick because that would have been a guy who can actually play in the league, who has mobility and size and nastiness. Not a great player, but again, if they would have been patient, Buffalo wasn't patient. It's the problem with the Ristolainen too. But anyway, Sam Morin, Travis Sanheim, Ivan Provorov, and what became German Rupsov. So that's only part of the picture. Now, we could have done a better job at having intervening years with during the primes of Jake and Drew, but I don't think the Flyers are going to win a cup without having that kind of depth and talent, young talent going forward, without the cap flexibility that they ended up having after Hextall cleaned things out.
They clearly dodged a huge bullet when Nashville matched that offer sheet. I mean, they just, even Ivan Provorov, like, we wouldn't trade Ivan Provorov right now straight up for Shea Weber. And Shea Weber's had a lot of injury issues. I mean, he's a fantastic player, but no one player is worth that much. And at the time, all the Flyers fans, I think, were hoping that Nashville wouldn't match, and we'd have Weber. And I think it was when we were just coming off of after the Pronger situation had happened, and I think that he would have been great for a few seasons, but I don't know if the team would have won a Stanley Cup. And right now, we're in much better shape than if we had gotten Weber. So yeah, I mean, we dodged a bullet. It's funny, you go back and you look at the Lindros deal too. Like, just giving up Peter Forsberg in that deal, probably, Forsberg went on to win Stanley Cups, and probably, who knows, maybe we would have won a Stanley Cup if we hadn't have done that trade. But that trade also basically created a whole new generation of Flyers fans. So that one's obviously a little more difficult. But it's always tough looking back at these things in retrospect. But yeah, the Weber deal, we dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, I think we would have avoided that silly JVR for Shen trade, and some other positive things could have occurred out of that. But yeah, Chef, I just don't think, like I said earlier, that we would have come up as a Stanley Cup winner, which is why you make a move like that. Without the sureness and goal, that problem was still there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they would have been more patient with Bob. I don't know, but they already had signed Briz, right? So
yeah, I think so. So, but the coolest thing about this article is like, okay, I was a comic book guy growing up too, and there was this thing called What Ifs, and it like played into retelling of a classic story with a new, what if, Captain America wasn't Captain America? What if, Peter Parker was Captain America? That kind of stuff or whatever. But this is the same thing here, too. This is the awesome thing about this article is Dan took it, and it's like Hollywood Hot Tub Time Machine and Doctor Who and friggin' Back to the Future Part 2 all wrapped up in one. He goes through where if this happens, then this wouldn't have happened and all this. So that's the coolest thing about it is conjecture and everything that could have happened or wouldn't have happened. I mean, like, just think about it. Like, you're half tempted to let it happen only because you wouldn't have had the Andrew McDonald years. I mean, he gave it its own chapter. And,
right, like that was the best part. Paragraph. No McDonald.
I thought that was hysterical. Yeah, but I want to just read something that I thought was the funniest. He goes, chances are that Sam Moran pick would have happened either way. I think that's great because that just shows you that's the best part of the whole article right there. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I remember looking at the video. They had one of those NHL, insider things, Dan, with the draft year of Sam Moran, and they were trying to come up with reasons not to draft him, and everybody seemed comfortable with the pick, and I'm like, look, no offense to Sam, he's a great kid, but what were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, they were just so desperate for the Pronger replacement. I mean, that's all that they were thinking. I mean, they got Pronger, and he had the concussions and had to basically retire, and then they lost out on Weber, and they were desperate to get that big, nasty defenseman, and they ended up taking a guy much higher in the draft than he should have gone. You said there weren't a whole lot of superstar level NHLers taken after him, but certainly they would have been better off with some of those guys that were taken after him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, the actress I'm thinking of is Gwyneth Paltrow in a 1998 film called Sliding Doors, and it showed you the divergent paths her life took, depending on which door she took and all that. It's an interesting concept, a little bit of sci-fi surreality if you're into that kind of stuff, so you might want to check that out. With that, I think we're going to leave it there and just tell you that the Flyers have that game we talked about earlier, that next Tuesday, hopefully between now and then, we'll have good news about Carter Hart. Maybe he doesn't play in that game, but everything will be okay with that. Dan, unless you had anything that was on your mind before we wrap tonight.
No, I'm just I'm thrilled to be joining the podcast with you guys. I think it's going to be great, and it's hard to believe that a week from now the Flyers are going to be playing a game. So I'm just really excited for that.
Yeah, freaking amazing. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, so they can follow me on Twitter at dsilver88. And if you want to see my latest Flyers Top 20 Prospects article, you can check that out at phillyisflyer.net.
Right. And you're going to do some pinch hitting tomorrow night, from what I understand.
I am, yeah. Actually, your guys' old co-host Dan Esch has asked me to come on and pinch hit tomorrow. I guess Angry Jim's got another engagement, so I'll be doing that tomorrow night with Dan.
Yeah, check that out. So look forward to that as well. Chef, what do you got to say about where people can contact you, and any final statements?
Yeah, well, you can get me at Chef B on Twitter, Chef at Steam Pub on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm just glad that we got another host to help us out with the name of Dan. That way I don't have to worry about yelling out the wrong name.
There you go.
That's right. It's automatic conversion. I'm Isaiah, and you can follow me on Twitter if you wish. Isaiah, ISAIAH _520, Isaiah _520. And of course, follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. And if you could rate and subscribe on your favorite platform, particularly Apple Podcasts, but we're also on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google. We have a YouTube channel, and iHeart, Spotify, all the ones that you'd ever want for your podcast platforms. Flyers play in a week. We can't wait. So, everybody, until next time, take care.